that I was very agnostic for a very long time because I moved to the extreme of like, there is no God, there is nothing, everything is made up. But what I think spirituality and religion is a very personal experience.
Oh, well. I want to meet your friend and ask her how in whatever Mother Mary
came into a room. I have my own theory, but I won't say it. I think we understand mental health in a very narrow way. It's affected by our culture, our traditions, our belief, our society. Like all of these contributes to that. And
welcome to the Inbox Podcast with Vincent Sugira. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back again to the Inbox Podcast with me, Vincent Sugira. So joining us today, we have a mental health activist, if I may say, enthusiast, a mental health enthusiast, poet, entrepreneur, CEO, co-founder of various institutions and companies. Please welcome to the Inbox, Miss
Berabose Aline Joice.
You have your poetic way of introducing yourself.
No, I wish I did. Ariko nzashaka do umuvugo, you know?
Oh.
Yeah.
You're taking a random poetry though?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I don't.
Why not?
I don't. I should. I would try.
Yes. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the Inbox Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
I know this has been on my bucket list for a long time.
I know.
Because I've known you for 5 years now. And when I started this podcast, I had a list of people I wanted to interview because I was going to focus on mental health. And we have very, very small number of people in that field, at least when I started the podcast. And you were on my bucket list. And then most of the times I could see you at the spoken word, and I'm like, oh, tonight I talk to her. I tell her about the thing, but I'm like, nah, not tonight. And then I remember when I approached you, it was after spoken word. And then me and my friends went to buy some candies, you know, at that candy shop close by. And then
my addiction.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, and then when we were buying our stuff, you just walked in with your friend. And I almost walked out. But then when I got to the door, I was like, come on, you gotta, you know. And then I came, hey, I have a mental health podcast. I'd like you to be on it. Please, would you like to be on my podcast? And you were so cool. You were like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then I asked for your number. You gave it to me. We planned the first time. It never worked. And here we are. Thank you for your...
Thank you. I never knew that I was on anybody's podcast or a bucket list, but I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're doing great things, though.
Oh, my God.
When you're doing things people need.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
How long have you been involved in mental health related activities, and what triggered your journey to start with?
You know what? I think that mental health has never really been the word that I used to use before because I've always been really passionate about creating safe spaces, building communities, and facilitating healing workshops. And I started doing that when I was 18 because I was privileged enough to be in a space that allowed me to face my traumas and my childhood issues at a very early on, and that's always been my dream. So I've moved from like conducting workshop, creating this, creating that until opening up the space that I'm into right now that obviously has mental health as one of its key pillars that we're working on. So in that context, I think that I've been doing what I think is like community healing for 8 years now. So yeah.
8 years. 8 years. I mean, I understand it's something you started workshops and then maybe it grew into something bigger. But what was that key defining moment that you were like, now I have to go big on this?
The trigger was okay. So the backstory is I attended my first healing sort of retreat when I was 18, and it was outside of Africa. So when I came back home, it felt really lonely. That like all the issues that you have been able to face felt like very un-African and random. And I was like, I have to find other people who are willing to create safe spaces with me, and I need to be able to share what I have learned in this work. So I think the trigger, if that's the word, it would just be a lonely journey, and being like, I just need other people to come forward and make me feel like I am not alone in this. And that to also challenge the belief that mental health or healing or addressing your issues is foreign. And so I think that was the first thing.
That's why I wanted to go, because you're talking about coming from outside Africa. You come to Africa, you start feeling lonely. I was going to ask, was it because maybe all your friends, you had left them where you were before, and now you come here, you have to start new friendships, find new jobs, network, all that kind of things. Was it just because of that, or you also had your personal moments that made you realize you didn't have enough space to express yourself, or what was it? I don't want.
No, healing is definitely a road less traveled. Even just simply learning something about yourself. And I see that in a common way, like as Rwandans, we live in a very similar way because of our culture, because of our belief and our understanding. And every time you explore something different, you realize like, oh my God, like, I don't know, like, am I alone in this? And this applies honestly to even, I felt the same way when I decided to leave the religion that I was part of.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
That's
and
a
I
hard
was
decision.
like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Like, who am I going to talk to right now if I'm not going to church, every Sunday? So healing felt like the same thing for me. I was like, and for people who have gone, for example, to therapy or did some kind of a healing retreat, in the beginning of it, it feels like an open wound. It feels like you had something under the rag and you never really touched it, even though it was hurting you. And when you begin that journey, it's like everything is so fresh, everything is so bright, and you're like, my friends, like, how can I be able to share that this happened to me? Because you have all of these friends around you that you didn't really used to talk about such a sensitive issues. Like, I will give you an example. If you were someone who were struggling with suicide, right? And you always hid it from your friends and your family, and it's a lonely battle, you fight it, and then you're provided a space in which where you're like expressing those thoughts and you're expressing what leads you to that, and then you're put back into the environment in which where you never have to speak about it again. And you're like, are they gonna think that I'm crazy? Do they feel the same way? So that's the same thoughts that I was in. And I was just very curious because I was like, there's no way that I'm alone, and I started feeling.
I think your worry, I don't know if it's true, but I feel like you were like, there's no way I'm feeling lonely and I'm home.
Yes. It's such a strange feeling because obviously you're in the community, and I think that's one of the things that we'll probably have to embrace. Like, as random people, we need to fight against our reserved conservative nature, because the stigma and this taboo around speaking about what we consider sensitive conversation is killing people. And it's making people present this mask of like working in our society, pretending to be like everybody else, pretending not to be struggling with something, not to be dealing with issues, and it's making them feel lonely, right? Yet when you open that up, so many people come through, right? I think we will talk about the communities that I've been able to create. We have, people who are struggling with substance dependency or abuse or addiction. And once, for a very long time, like we never really speak about it in our community, alcoholism, substance abuse openly, that we always pretend as something that happens. But then when someone is brave enough to step forward, other people be like, oh, I struggle with that as well. And so we need to break that in order to create community, but also fight loneliness that is thriving in our community, because all of us have to maintain this cute idea of like being nice and well reserved people.
Now that's a self-inspired journey where the idea of starting your communities and everything came from, but that's only about you. That's your journey. And you haven't done your research now to understand the community you are in and everything. Now, what was your how do I call this, what was the most shocking part of your findings when you were also trying to explore the same matter in the community that you wanted to address?
So in the beginning, you know about this, but the audience is the first community that I created was a women's safe space. It's because I experienced this world as a woman. A lot of abuse and violence that was done to me was because I was a woman, because I grew up a girl, and I was like, I just need women to find safe spaces for us to come and share what it means to be a woman growing up in a very patriarchal or religious, whatever it is that womanhood comes with. And I was just very comfortable, and I loved the sisterhood that I was creating. I loved the female friendships that I was developing. I think what inspired me to move beyond that is the idea that I'm not just a woman. I'm a random person as well, and I was seeing other factors that in our society that are just not related to that. It was actually the belief that because I'm a woman, it doesn't mean that we are the only ones who suffer. There's other issues as well. I think the most common one in our community now as a young person is the alcohol abuse, as I mentioned, right? There's a whole growing, spreading drinking culture. In the way we socialize, in the way we come together, in the way we normalize it in our own way of life. And I was like, this is interesting, right? And it was also about, as I'm a post, what we will call like a post-genocidal generation, and me and my friends were like really struggling to express, for example, intergenerational traumas of things that we were facing. Like we had no language, we felt like, how do you talk about this? How do you express these things? So when all of these issues were coming out, I was like, we need much more bigger safe spaces than just safe spaces for women. We need various things, right? I mentioned about me living my religious belief. It's also something that I was like, what are other people?
I'll later ask you about that.
I don't want to talk about
For real,
it.
I will.
But those kind of things, it was like, there's so much more. There's so much more that needs to be addressed for us to be better Rwandans, better citizens, better youth. That sometimes we just talk about it like, oh my God, the world is changing so much. There's like all of these things that are happening, but we are not willing to address like, what are those issues? So yeah, I came like organically in need to respond to different needs. And some of them have gone honestly outside of my own controls. There are spaces that have been created and facilitated by others, because also someone is able to step in and be like, hey, I'm doing this work, I'm passionate about this, and I feel like we need a community, right? And that's how like those safe spaces were able to grow.
Before we go any further, I think we need to now please tell us how many spaces you now count
Oh my
that
God.
were created, and then talk a little bit more about this space we are sitting in.
Yeah.
By the way, today we are not at the studio. I decided to come at her space so that we can do it here. So please tell them a little about this space and more communities you have, because we never know, somebody else might want to join. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we are here at the Circle, or the Circle Kigali, and basically this is a healing and wellness center. We are located in Katiru, and we provide mental health services. So we are able to connect people to different healthcare professionals that are available in Rwanda, and then we curate those community support and safe spaces for people, what we call circles. I don't think I will remember all of them right now, but the ones that come to mind is that obviously we have the Sister Circle, a safe space for women. We have the Buna for Mom Circle, that's a safe space for mothers, particularly young mothers and women who are expecting to become a mom. We have the Men's Circle, it's specifically for safe spaces for men to come and discuss. Yes. Yeah. And then we have the Sober Friendly Circle, is for people who are fighting substance dependency, as I mentioned. We have a gender-based violence survivor support group. It's for people who grew up in domestic violence, currently living under violence. We have so many different others that we continue to create.
Now, can you specifically talk about a few and then mention days that those communities come together?
I'll mention that the two most weekly ones, because they're easy one, is that we have a community support group. It's basically a healing public space for everyone who wants to explore for growth, connection, and healing. And that is open to anyone, all nationalities, all races and genders, and anyone in the community. So it's Thursday at 6:30 every week. And then the alcohol or the substance one is every Tuesday at 6:30. All of the other ones occur on separate days, a separate thing. So, but if you can search as on whatever platform you're in, the Circle Kigali, you will be able to get the full program.
I attended one of the sessions, and I think, like you mentioned, well, it's quite hard to break the cultural interpretation of what it's like to share your feelings, but then it's also inspiring just to be in a space where everyone is free. Note it, you're talking to people, strangers, people you might not even see the next day or whatever, but you feel like you want to open up because that's what the space inspires, So it's a really good thing. But now let's go back to when now you start your first space for women, and then you grow. And then as you grow, how have you seen now changing it, people's lives, those who were participating in it? What was your take on it? Did you sit back and be like, maybe I shouldn't have done this? Or maybe now I see this is bearing fruit?
I think every change has to be met with resistance from the people, from the community, even within yourself. You're always judging your own idea, yourself, because if I remember the first healing circle that I hosted, 3 people showed up. And those 3 people were also people that I knew.
Your friends.
Yes, my friends. And now, I mean, you've come to one of our circles. Like sometimes we have 70, 100 and people youth showing up. And I'm like, also, that's also met with resistance internally, because I'm like, who are these people? And am I even capable of doing that? I think the journey of it, what I have learned I can share, is that you need to trust your inner voice that tells you, that reminds you the why you started. If you can tap into, stay consistent, and just lean into that. The changes I've seen into the community is that a lot of people, as you mentioned, a lot of them want to be able to come, first of all. I always tell them that the first biggest thing you can do for your self-care, for your mental health, is showing up. People expect that, no, I have to go and talk and do all of these things and open up and share. I have things that are... It's not about that. Show up.
So the day I came, a friend of mine, we were talking at work, and then she was like, Vincent, I have something you have to see. And then she showed me the poster of the circle. And she was like, you have to be there. I'm like, why do you think I have to be there? And she was like, Vincent, I know you have to be there. And it's not just that I know you're also going to say. I'm like, bro, nah, I'm not doing that.
This is not my vibe.
Yeah. No. I mean, it was my type of thing I'd go to. I do mental health podcast. I do... My project in college was about mental health.
Nice.
But I was like, why in the first place does she think that if I attend, I'm going to share? And then I came, I was like, maybe she was right, Yeah, so continue.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons why, so one of our principles here at the Circle that we really try to do is decolonizing mental health, because in a foreign concept, therapy, it's amazing, but it's also a very isolating journey. So you're basically going into a room and you're seeing this big professional, and don't even mention when they finally subscribe you or send you to a psychiatrist to do some tests, and you're like, oh my God, I am so sick, and I'm doing all of these things. I think as Rwandans that community spaces that zituzana mu ruziga around the fire are very disarming, and there's a power in that. There's also a saying around like vulnerability bleeds vulnerability. I think when other people are sharing about certain things, it's so encouraging, like the bravery, someone who's able to find words, for example, to talk about something that you've been conditioned to think like never, that when people say like, even if I was at a gunpoint, I would never say these things. And then you find someone who's able to find words and courage to talk about something like that, and you're like, I can talk about this. I think what kills us, and I saw one professional talking about it, is that a lot of our things that we struggle with is because of suppression and oppression of what has happened to us. And then even though it was a big or small, it continues to grow because you have never shared it. And in most worst cases, it transforms into, physical issues, headache, back issues, stomach issues, because you've been carrying that thing since you were like a child or for 5 years and etc. So I think that's the beauty of having a community of like people continue to talk, and you're like, I want to be able to speak about my own things one day.
Yeah, I think now that you mentioned, I had one person on this podcast, and we were talking about the role that different aspects of life play in somebody's mental health. We spoke about romantic relationships. We spoke about religion, a relationship with God. But now I'm gonna slip off a bit the romantic relationship part, and then go straight to the religion, the relationship between an individual and God, which is, I'm not going to say which is the one you broke when you were starting this journey, because maybe you shifted from one church to another, but why in the first place did you decide to change churches? Or just to break it all? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, so personally, I feel like the way I grew up, a lot of identities are put onto us, and the expectation is that you have to live like that, you have to be that person, because that's just how things work. And we never leave a room in which where you can say no, like, I don't think I identify with this, I want to try other different things. And for a very long time, I think it was a waiting on me, because I'm a very critical human being. And every time I would question or do something, it just felt like the response was always been like, I struggle with the idea of shame and sin, and imagining my life in a way that everything I would do, it's either that you have to do so good or etc., that or you will end up burning in a fire and all of it. That was just my specific struggle, in which then why am I here?
Which I think that's the feeling for most people.
I was like, is there no room to like make mistakes and try? And honestly, me personally, it was the idea of like, can I challenge things? Can I explore things? Can I understand this God by myself?
Yeah, I see.
That was the simplest way that, and that was affecting. I'm glad that you mentioned about relationship, because this thing is also applying to love. Like, I don't want someone to project the idea that who you are as a woman is that you have to stay put and don't do this, don't do all of that, to go to school, focus on all of this, but then boom, get married, have children. Like, I want to explore love and relationship and romance for myself. I want to figure out like what type of dynamic and partner relationship that I have. But it felt like all of these structures are already defined. I've struggled, me personally, with that, with the identity of love, with the identity of God, with the identity of being Rwandan, because everything I was trying to do, as you can imagine, when I was a kid, I was already trying to do different things. I wanted to have my first tattoo. My mom was telling me that's not what umunyarwandakazi akora, and it was so strange, with the relationship of God, I think I left because I wanted to be secular, to start from scratch and define from the beginning what is the meaning of God for me. What type of relationship do I desire to have with God? And build from there. Without facing, you were born Catholic. And I'm like, I was born Catholic. I was raised Catholic. And it was just like, why was I born Catholic? And so, that was the journey for me. Like, when I was 16, that's when it was like, and it was starting 16. To feel like, so I was like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to go to Gusenga. I didn't want to do my Heavenly Father prayers. I was just feeling like it's becoming more like a forced ritual in my head. And even the relationship with God was not there, because I felt like I was practicing something that is passed down on me from several people. And I'm like, I'm not those people. It's me here. Like, I need to have a personal relationship with God. So that's how I ended up.
But later, after that, did you go back? Did you go back to relationship with God? Or when you found that, like you mentioned, you wanted to start your original thing with God, did you later find it, or you remained?
I did. It took a very long time. It took a very long time. I'm not gonna lie. I think for a very long time, we will spend a whole night. But the basic definition is that I was very agnostic for a very long time, because I moved to the extreme of like, there is no God, there is nothing, everything is made up. And that was a very lonely also route. And it's also because you don't have, again, as I mentioned, community. You're not going to church. There's how it disrupts your relationship with your parents, with your friends. And then, but it's also how like your perspective of life starts to change. I was like, then if there is no God, what is the meaning of life? And, dive into an existential dread crisis for a very long time. But what I loved is that I allowed myself to try different things. Because I grew up Catholic, I went to ADPL, I went to Adventist Church, I went to Islamic, I tried Buddhism, and I did
Okay.
Um,
Now, with that experience, you had to really find your ground
I did.
later. Okay.
Yeah, later on is it just became for, I think the more I grew up very recently, it's when I decided to be like, I'm starting to put God's in a more visual way. I'm starting to have, I guess, not a definition, but a former understanding of what God is to me and my relationship with that, and what I'm required to do, and listening more to what God requires me. So I always tell people, don't take this by a script, because I don't like scripts. But what I think spirituality and religion is a very personal experience.
Fact.
And it is very possible, and I've seen very many people who have ventured on the same journey, even some authors who have ventured on the same journey and found themselves back to Christianity route. And I support that more than anything, because it means someone went on their own journey and finally decided that I like this route. Like Christianity is it for me, and this is what I like. So make it personable.
So yeah, we were at spiritual
Oh,
relationship.
spirituality. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So you were telling me you support the idea of one's finding and defining for themselves what God is and the kind of relationships they would like to have with Him. Yeah.
It's definitely, yeah. So the spiritual journey is very personal. And then after that, you have found what it is that you truly like. Obviously, community comes in, because that's where you find strength. That's where you find, the support that you need to grow in that spiritual belief. So I'm not against, a lot of times when I tell people I left this religion, they're like, oh my God, she's one of those agnostic people, and I'm like, not really. I just believe that if you're a Christian, you must truly believe. And there's a power in that. As I mentioned, I've seen people who found themselves on the same route as their parents were on, but now for themselves. Then it's much more powerful, because they believe, I'm here for me.
Yeah.
I'm not here because my parents asked me to. I'm not here because I was born in a restricted places in where I didn't even know what other things that are out there. So, yeah.
More
Go
like
for it.
a personal kind of decision for what you want to believe in, so that it makes even more sense for you. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, what would you say is the contribution, or what kind of role does religious belief play in maintaining or destroying somebody's mental well-being?
Oh my God. A lot. Because when we talk about mental health, you said this earlier, the factors and what influences is so many different ways.
Yes.
I think we understand mental health in a very narrow way. It's affected by our culture, our traditions, our belief, our society. Like, all of these contributes to that. And some of it are positive, that some of it have a positive impact towards our well-being, our understanding of mental health. Because, like, for example, if you grew up in a society that has less awareness, less collective understanding of mental health, collectively, that's when, like, people who have mental health issues are, the response is most likely to be like discriminating. Or you find people who grew up having bipolar disorders, schizophrenic, I struggle to say this word. And
I
it's
don't
like,
even know what that is, but we move.
because nobody has an idea. It's like, if the collective society believes that this is demonic possession, and or that family grew up in a religious belief where when they talk about demon, it's always someone who's like screaming and etc. Then if you show those symptoms and signs, I mean, the response is going to be that. So in that ways, I don't just mean one religion, like our collective belief and understanding and faith that we have impacts everything about mental health, right? A lot of, for example, people who struggle with depression, and who are also Christians, the immediate way to respond to that is like guilt and shame, because how could someone like me, who believes that God fixes everything and is a provider, is a protector, I'm struggling? It means like I don't have control over all of these things, because they're putting that guilt and shame on themselves, because every single day it's what their thought is like, you're not supposed to have these feelings, you know what I mean? And so yeah, in that ways, like I feel like for us to understand and to be more open and more conscious about the experiences of mental health and well-being, we also need to be open-minded about how different things play into our livelihood, basically.
But now, when it comes to that, I think talking about talking about religion, that's where people's faith now start to fall, because now I'm a Christian, a diehard one.
Yes.
But I'm at a point in my life where I doubt whether God really cares or not. And then at this point, I feel like he doesn't care. That's my downfall. I mean, okay, that's not my downfall, but that's the downfall of relationship I had with God. Yeah. And then to restore it, it's also going to take time. Now, I'm pretty sure you have those people who come to the community. They share all those experiences. What, maybe not personally, not you personally giving them advice of how they can deal with that, but what has been the most recurring advice from the circles, from whatever, what has been the most recurring advice for people who are like that to deal with that situation?
I think that we need to tell each other that thoughts and feelings that we feel are valid, that it's okay, for example, to lose faith in something that you always believed. And if that is the thing for you, you will find yourself in the same position. And I think it's just letting go of the idea of always constantly feeling that you're not supposed to be this way, you're not supposed to feel this way. I think allowing yourself on, what is this moment teaching me? What are these questions that I'm asking? Where can I find the answers? The only problem I find is that when someone is questioning their religion, there's this need is like, you must not. And I'm like, let them question it and seek answers that they are looking for. Let them find their belief again in Christian. And I have a friend of mine who asked, herself. We've been friends all our lives, and she's very deep Christian. And for a very long time, she was struggling with it. And I think she asked herself this God, and she was like, if truly, truly, truly you are real, and show yourself to me. And she asked that for a very long time. I just need a sign. I'm tired of like just doing all of that. And she did. And that is her own experiences. She was like, I'm back again. I'm a Christian, because she asked the question and she found the answer that she was looking for. And that's what I was saying. It has to be personable in so many different ways. You know, I have a friend in high school who was Catholic, and now she's a mother. We were like the buddies in high school, who she was never very Christian. She got sick, and then she had the spiritual experiences from her journey. She was sick, and then she apparently had the spiritual experiences with Mother Mary. This is not even like a Catholic. She was just a buddy, one of my greatest friends.
Tell me about that, because those are one of the things I'm like,
But this is what I'm saying. It's so personable. And I remember talking to her and I was like, girl, that's like the most craziest thing. And I was thinking to myself,
like something I would say.
Of all the girls, Mary came and found you in your room. But it's also very personable. Like, honestly, I talk about her because of since high school, her faith in the Catholic Church has been undeniable. And so is my faith in my current living and lifestyle as well, because we all have ways, like we need to liberate people and liberate souls and let humans like be free, you know, that
make deliberate choices.
I think there's a need to constantly want to cage people and want to control people, that you have to be this, and if you're like this, you have to try this, and this weighs on so many people's mental health that they cannot even discover themselves.
Oh well, I want to meet your friend and ask her how in whatever Mother Mary
came into her room. I have my own theory, but I won't say it on this podcast.
Wait. She came.
This is my friend.
Mother Mary came
to her room. Yes.
And then she saw her.
She saw her in the room standing there.
Okay. Can you ask?
Specifically, this woman was like, if you continue your lifestyle like this, if you continue like this, she literally said, I'm gonna kill you. No, I'm gonna give you a disease, which in that case, we thought she was gonna catch HIV and then you would die. And she was so frightened. And I was like, that's not even the Mother Mary that I know, because I'm a Catholic, you know, I've always prayed to Mary my whole life. I've said the rosary like 10 times, you know, it was very strict. But it was like, I was like, whoa.
Ask your friend if the Mother Mary she saw looks like the Mother Mary on monuments or statues or
she does, you know, that's
okay.
I swear. There's
so
a psychological
reason.
Yeah, it is a there's a psychological things behind that. We always see God in the images in which where we were taught they look like.
Yeah.
And I don't personally think that's an indication that it's not true. It's not an indication of also how our mind works. It needs to create familiarity. So me, for a very long time, except now, when I thought of a God, I always imagine a big white guy with beard sitting in a crowd, because I don't even know, but that's just how I imagine God being, you know? Yeah. But now, and for when I was doing my feminist work with a lot of my sisters, I started imagining God as a feminine force and energy, because I was connecting more with, as a woman, the way we have the power to nurture and create life and our cycle and the nature. And that's how God was for me. He looked like the God in Moana, you know, like all of it's the God of nature. But now the God I have in mind is energy. It's energy. And how would anyone define that, right? But I find my own terms because that's personal to me.
Interesting.
It is a very that's another topic.
Luna, come on, man. What? Okay, I've never come across such kind of people who had how do they call it?
Call what?
What's the term for Mother Mary appearing, whatever? What's the term? Yeah, I want it in English. I don't know what it is, but
I forgot too. It's a very easy
when your
term.
friend told you about it, did you believe it?
The way you're so stuck on this, I did. I did because this is a woman that we have always been friends throughout high school. I personally, I have this thing that, and I think you will hear it in a lot of my facilitation of my own circle on Thursday. I continue insisting in a way that when someone shares something from their own POV, as internet would share their point of view, it is what is real to them and it is what they're experiencing and feeling. When the sympathy comes from, or empathizing is like really understanding and connecting that how you feel about other things is also how they're feeling about other things. I didn't see the reason for my friend to lie just randomly, because also there was she was not forcing that this is what you must do. It was a personal message.
Yeah, and I think
her.
it also made a lot of sense coming from somebody who you knew better. And I think maybe it would have not made a lot of sense when she said it, but I think it started to get clearer when, she started acting in accordance to what Mother Mary
told her.
Yeah, I was gonna use threaten.
I feel like she did threaten her, because she did threaten her with death, because that's crazy. Yeah. It's like, if you don't do this, you will die. Yeah. But I also think that it's very cultish in a way that when someone else feels something or experience something, and in their fall, they feel like it gives them some kind of a super power and super nature to be like, therefore all of you follow me, and then everybody follows that person. And I'm like, God did not tell you specifically. The God talked to this person, or Mary talked to this person, or Jesus talked to this person. And I don't know, I have a big conflict between people who tries to drag other people in their own path, because I don't know, I'm skeptical around that. That's just my skepticism. I feel like we need to draw a line in which where I can respect. Like, good for you. I'm very glad that you have this Jesus relationship, where you have this Abrahamic relationship with your God, and it's so beautiful. It's very admirable. But I'm still on my way, I'm still figuring out what I do, what I believe is real. And I honestly admire people who show up and be like, I honestly don't know.
And I think that's what makes you a perfect person to set up whatever mental health communities you set up. Because I'm only saying this because from our conversation, I understand you had time to explore yourself, to learn yourself. And then from there, you also learned to understand people's point of views. Yeah, to understand that it's how they see things. Yeah, I have my own perspective, but it doesn't give me the right, it doesn't give me a reason to directly judge them. Maybe what I just need is for me to listen to them. Whether they are saying crazy things I don't believe in or whatever, but I've got to listen to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, earlier you mentioned about exploring lots of religions, most of which I don't even remember. But now, during that exploration, maybe this is kind of out of what we were talking about, but during that exploration, what did you find out was, I don't know if I can call it a lie, the most thing you've been lied about, and you'd be like, I wish I knew.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Nobody has ever asked me that. Yeah. I think we all... I would say that the most... It's not a misconception or a lie that is told to us, is that each... I would talk for growing up Catholic. The biggest lie that they told me, it was like, we were right and everybody else were wrong. Yeah. And the lie continues building from there, and in which where, honestly, until I had a Muslim friend, I genuinely had this, and I still have conversations with friends today who insist that every night each Muslim family gathers around, and then they have this like rituals that they have to perform.
No, that's crazy. I don't think Muslims even have rituals.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. But in my own belief, I believed that. Yeah. And I thought it was true. Yeah. And I was insisting on my Muslim friend that she's just not being honest. Yeah. Because also my people around me would say that they will never tell you these things because it's how they get their money, it's how they get their power. Yeah. And it just made so much sense. Fact. Yeah. And it's everybody else. It's Fact. Everybody else. It's like, we are right. We're doing something right. This is the right path and everybody else is wrong. I think that is the biggest lie because you go into another community, you find they're saying the same thing. They think the same other way. But when you zoom out in most of the religions, at least I will speak in the context of Abrahamic religion, is they're all talking about the same thing. And I think in so many ways they're talking about the same God as well. But just, I guess, choosing to wear differently, different restrictions, different ways on how you can talk to that God. But at the end, it's like, it's the same God. I think I like this Jewish person who said that Abrahamic religions is just people pointing at the same moon. A person in the US, when they see the moon, it's for them, it's like, this is the moon, but I'm in Rwanda and I'm seeing the same moon. But it seems like it's my moon, but it's not really, it's just one moon across the world.
That's a good theory.
I think it was a great saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what? Okay, I don't know if it's not personal, but if it is not, what were like the two things that made you decide on which religion you wanted to follow after, carrying out all possible interventions with other religions?
Oh my God. I think this one is very new to a lot of random people. I do tell it to my team though. So the current belief, it's not really defined, but to me, I call it, and the people that are in the same path, we call it the third path.
The third path?
Okay. The third path. And it's basically allowing yourself, your purpose, your belief, or your life to open up for you. Without restricting it.
Yeah.
So I will not say that I picked this specific thing. It could have been anything, but I believe this Berabose Aline who's in this life, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It might change in a certain moment in time because I would learn different things. I would be exposed to different things. It's basically like it unfolds itself. Like your spirits always guide you where you're supposed to be if you allow it to be. So I ended up here because I couldn't have imagined it differently. It was not like I was choosing this, controlling this. Like I went here and I was like, this is not working for me. It doesn't align with
What's your idea of heaven?
Whoa. It changes.
I'm listening.
It changes. I think heaven is what I'm able to create here on earth. Because what I know to be true, there's this Oprah question that she always asks her guests. It's like, what is, I don't know how she formulates it, but I think it's like, what is one thing that you truly believe to be true? Something like that. One thing I truly believe to be true is that I am alive and I'm alive in this time here and now. The most guarantee of life anywhere that I have is this one.
It's this one, yeah.
Yeah. So if it's good and the bad, I have to create it in this life. If there is an afterlife, good. Like I would enjoy it in there. And I strongly believe that if there's an afterlife, if I have lived right in this life, I will go. Whether I went to church or not, I think I would go 100%.
Now, I think if you talk to Christians or people who are deep in religion, they will tell you, you do not know how to live right if you not live by what God or His Son have approved as a way of living, which also includes, like they say, to admit Him as Savior and everything, the drill. Yeah. And now, if you talk to them, you tell them how you want to live your life. Yeah. What would you tell them is your definition of living right?
I think that's the beautiful thing about faith. Faith is basically believing in something. Once you believe in it, it becomes true to you.
Yeah.
I think if you are a Christian, you have to believe that if you follow the 10 commandments, do etc., pray, do all of these things, that you will step into the the heaven, right? The good thing about having faith in my current is that when I do things, I feel good. I know that I'm guaranteed to have goodness, and I'm also guaranteed to suffer in this lifetime. But I don't do it feeling like I must not do these things because I will gain this lifetime experience of goodnesses and a good house. I think if I work and get a good apartment and this is a good apartment that I have now and it's what I have, I will not deny myself of anything right now in order to get something in the end. But I think it's also the idea, you mentioned something about what would I do to convince someone, and it's not possible because I don't necessarily ever ask someone that they need to believe that I'm right because I don't know. It's faith.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to believe that I'm right.
Yeah.
Same way that they're choosing to believe that they're right.
They're right, yeah.
And I hope they're right. And I hope I'm right.
We hope we find out who is right.
We hope we find out, because everybody's doing different things. I mean, even agnostics, they are betting on the idea that there is no God, or some people even believe that they believe they're not even real, that this is not even real. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe you don't think you're real. You're here, the one talking about these things. I feel like everyone is making a bet on like, I'm choosing to do this. Yeah. And let's see.
I think I would like to have you on the podcast with the other guest I had earlier. We were talking about Christianity. My friend, we had a very, very heated debate.
Wow.
And I don't know. I like to talk about Christianity. You know why I like to talk about Christianity is when people claim to be under one umbrella, I say, I want them to have a universal definition. I don't know. So if we are all Christians, now let's have a common definition, like one definition. If I ask you, you give me this one thing. Not you're a Christian, I ask you your idea of Christianity, your idea of heaven, or your idea of what is right and what is wrong. You tell me, and then when I go to somebody else who claims to be a deep Christian, they tell me a different things.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, that's contradicting. But then I got to understand that there is being a Christian, but there is also what you believe in and the interpretation you make in your head.
100%.
And then I made peace with it. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Interpretation is very key to faith because people read the same verse and understand differently. And Bible, even in the history of Rwanda, or generally in the world, has always been used as a weapon of war, of division, of destruction. I think it's also been used as a force for good, and in so many different ways. So I guess it is very about interpretation as well. And I think there cannot be one definition of Christianity specifically because there's just too many other identities to interact with it. Because people like Africans, a lot of our conditions that Christian life demands us is also, it can be very colonial, right? Because in my upbringing, even though it was Catholic, is supposed to be like a very open in terms of drinking and certain behavior and stuff. So it's not as very restrictive as it is. But you will find that in some people, it's like having dreads or growing natural hair. Our natural hair as Africans is considered
the emphasis on our
natural hair as Africans. It's sinful, And you're like, where does this belief come from? It can only come because it's also interacting with our history as Africans in the messages of how we perceive Africanness, how we perceive our people, our culture, our people versus whiteness, right? Where a lot of whiteness do not have to feel like I have to shave my head in order to become very Christian. They don't feel like they have to wear they don't feel like they have to change a lot of their physical presence because they're also in the image of God, of what at least the most of the God that we see is there. So it interacts with that. You find how women interact with God is also how women different from how men perceive God, right? So in some of the region, women are, perceive every time they menstruate is like, I'm dirty, I'm unholy, I'm doing all of these things. So they have to like practice and do all of these other things because it's interacting with also their perceived idea of what a woman is considered to be in the society.
Yeah.
And that also goes to Rwandan and all of these things,
Yeah.
So there's so many interactions with Christianity. It cannot be one voice.
Yeah, and I think that's really true. And I think it also goes in a sense where the world is changing so fast, and then everyone has to catch up. Adjustments have to be made on almost...
Watch how Christianity deals with AI.
Yeah, the AI, homosexuality,
yes,
all those kind of things. I think that's so true. Now, I thought we were going to have enough time for your poetry. Yeah.
Oh my God, no, we're not doing that.
So I thought we were actually. I recently had a poet on my podcast. We made the entire podcast a poetry performance.
Oh my God.
And then I ended feeling like I should have some episodes. It's just poetry. Poetry, yeah. And then, actually, when I started my studio, the idea was to create a space for poets.
Oh, nice.
Why? Because I believe poetry is a very, very beautiful art. But to me, I don't think it receives the privilege it deserves. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons, it's not a dying art, really. It's an art that is always going to be valid in every situation. But I think also the delivery of, let's say, for recording poetry, I didn't think the quality we provided as poets inspired the audience really to listen. Right. Or the quality, the graphics, whatever we provided inspired them. And then they started considering us like, I don't know, whatever. So I was like, okay, let me create a space for poets. But then as I grew, days went by, I'm like, nigga, you gotta make money and stuff. But then I'm still on the idea that poets have to find their space here. So I thought we were going to find some time for your poetry. Even though we might not find enough time, but because I received you as a poet, okay, I received
as a person.
No, I received you as a mental health enthusiast and somebody who has really done some tangible things in that matter, but also can't forget the aspect of poetry. So which is why I'm gonna ask if you have 2 lines or 3, we can close with.
Oh my God, I'm not okay. So
I've seen you performing in.
I have, and I hate to make this political, but I am actually not that poet who's like, oh, let me rhyme. I think my poetry interacts very much with my feelings. Like I found poetry only because I was processing my feelings.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
It was actually when I started even performing in spoken words. I published the book Unsung, and those were musings and excerpts from my journal that I used, recommended by my therapist. So like I'm not a poet in a way that my poet identity exists outside of the independently. Like the more I process my feelings, it's always usually things that I was writing down.
What was the most touching poem you've ever written coming from your feelings?
Ooh, I can't. Why are you doing this to me? This is so sensitive.
Yeah, like
I would also reply that very politically. It's the one that I haven't shared yet. Everything that is in Unsung is the things that I have allowed myself, other people to see me. Because poetry, I like what you say, that poetry is not losing the art, but it's so vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's like walking naked in the public and everybody is watching, and I think I only open and share things when I'm comfortable with them being outside. So I would say the most sensitive ones are the ones that are still stuck on the things. The ones that I'm like, if somebody sees this,
I see.
I can't.
I see.
No, I can't think. Nothing comes to me now.
No, it's okay.
Next time.
No worries. I hope we have next time. Anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I was really looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Like I mentioned, it's something I really wanted to do with you for a long time. And thank you so much for your time. I hope we do it again. I'm coming back here next week, coming with my friend. We were talking and she was like, where were you? And I'm like, I was here. I sent her the poster and she was like, I gotta be here. So I'm gonna come with her. Now, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sugira.
Keep doing what you're doing. I think you are one of the few that doing whatever you're doing.
Thank you.
So keep doing what you're doing. And if you got something to say before we close up, now it's your time to shine. I gave you time to shine with your poetry. You didn't want it. Now I'm giving you a second chance. Let's go.
Well, number one thing is obviously thank you so much for authentic and honest conversations. Such a beautiful podcast, and I'm truly, truly honored to be honored here and for giving me the platform and the space to express myself. And for anyone who would be blessed enough also to watch this conversation, this is an open invitation. Please come to the circle, reach out to us. This is a space created for us, by us, together. I might be here as the visionary, as the founder, but it's a team. It's a team. Show up on Thursday, show up on Tuesday, show up randomly. And and I hope I get to see you. And I guess my message to everyone is that don't let anyone clip off your wings, Fly.
Fly. Do you want to tell them the social media they can go through to reach out to the circle?
Yes. So Twitter, TikTok, Instagram is thecircle.kigali. And but also you can follow me on all social medias. I know I have a lot of handles, but in most of them is at Berabose. It's like at Berabose or sometimes at Berabose official. But we also have a website, thecirclekigali.com. Basically, follow me or follow our Instagram. You will be looped in.
Yeah. You have a private room. Someone, if they're feeling week, they can come and just chill here. And stuff. There are books here.
Yes, there's books. We have a reading circle every month. We have a safe space, and that's just like also emergency safety or just personal time. We have therapy rooms. We have a sexual room, by the way. That most people, we don't really talk about it, but we also have a sexual...
What happens in sexual room?
It's a sexual consultations room. So you can meet a sex therapist or a medical doctor for medical consultations of any other kind. We deal with sexual health specifically because it's also a very heavily stigmatized conversation. But our space is also always open if they can come for... just feeling like I'm not ready to talk. I just want somewhere to be. And my team is trained and ready to know like what support can we provide to this person.
Is that free of charge or?
A lot of us, except a professional. If you have to meet a professional, you have to pay. But we also have funds that supports people who are vulnerable, particularly survivors of different violence. The invitation is always like, come to the circle and we will see.
All right. Thank you so much for following up and watching and listening, whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for your time. Catch you next time. Ciao.
Bye.